Today is February 29th, 2024, Leap Day. My name is Tanya Finchum, and I'm with Oklahoma State University with the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program. With me is RuthAnn McCarthy Sirbaugh, an OSU alum and a retiree with almost 13 years as director of OLLI at OSU, 2007 through 2019. We're in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and this interview will be part of the Stories from Oklahoma State University Oral History Project. So thank you for letting me come today. Before we get into your career at OSU and OLLI, let's learn a little bit about you. Start wherever you like.
Okay. Well, I'm initially from Tulsa, Oklahoma. I am the middle of 5 children. My dad was an engineer. My mom was a homemaker, but they always put a lot of emphasis on education. I went to parochial schools until my sophomore year of college, and then I transferred to OSU when my dad was out of town. I just feel like I had a good educational base, and it was valued in my family. And so it was kind of natural that I ended up working in the educational arena like I did.
So parochial schools, and then where did you spend your first couple of years of college?
I went to St. Mary's in San Antonio.
Away from home.
Away from home, still plenty of nuns. It was I shouldn't say this on film. It was a little wilder than OSU. It was all the Catholic girls away from home. It was a lot of fun, but I did transfer to OSU, and I got my bachelor's degree in English. And then, what do you do with that? I went and worked at the deli at IGA, and it inspired me to go back to school. And then I got my master's degree while I was working full-time. While I had 2 children, I got my master's in educational psychology from the College of Education.
And what year was that? So let's put a little bit of time.
That was, 91.
91. An undergrad would have been 81.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right in there. I'm thinking of 81. Well, when you finished with the degree in English, what had you planned to do with it?
I wanted to be a comedy writer. That's what I planned to do. Yep. And then I went and worked for the local newspaper, and I was supposed to be a proofreader. And I ended up in the circulation department. And so I just proofread because they didn't want a proofreader. So I was like, here's all the mistakes, free. But I did that for a while. And then I went to work for OSU as a secretary. And I'm going to say I truly valued those skills, but it was not for me. So I did that for a few years. But the people I met working in the College of Business are friends to this day. The faculty, a lot of them taught for OLLI. And then I went to work for academic services for student athletes, and I was their first student academic advisor.
Wow. Okay. Before Dr. Middlebrooke.
Yes, Marilyn was in the College of Education. I worked for Dr. Ron Brown. He was just an inspiration to work for. He truly, truly was. He walked the walk, was a student athlete, didn't do well in college, didn't take advantage of what was offered to him, came back, got his doctorate, and really connected with a lot of those young men. And I feel like we did a lot of good during those early years. And so I learned how to work with and test for learning disabilities. And eye tracking, and I hired the tutors and worked on remedial plans, retaught high fail classes like History 1103 and a lot of the things that we used in athletic services transferred further down the road with OLLI, like history, making it. I had a tutor who would just make a story out of it, and he'd have 20 football players going, wait, we can't leave yet. We got to learn how this ends. And it was, like we never learned history that way. And so it was fun and engaging, and I really, really enjoyed that job a lot.
Well, let's back up. Why did you choose to come to OSU at that stage, and why OSU?
To transfer to college?
Yeah.
Because I was madly in love.
Okay, good enough.
And I had a lot of friends here too. So, yeah. And yeah, I had a great experience at OSU.
Did you live on campus?
Mm-hmm, I did.
Which?
I lived in Murray Hall, right in front of Stout.
Mm-hmm.
They were older dorms, and Stout now I think is an honors dorm. It was not an honors dorm then. My youngest son lived in Stout, and he thought it was all cool. And then he said, where's the bathrooms in here? I'm like, they're down the hall. This is an old building. But I lived on campus, and then lived in a really shady apartment when I got out of the dorms. And yeah, I had a great time here at OSU.
Do you remember your room number in Murray?
No, I don't. But it was funny. One of my potluck roommates ended up living a block away from my house now. So
it meant for you two to connect.
Yeah.
Okay, so once you finish your undergrad, you went to work for the deli. Didn't like that, and then the newspaper, and then back to campus.
Mm-hmm.
And then OLLI was in 2000. Well, there was something before OLLI, wasn't there?
There was a volunteer organization called SAL, Stillwater Academy of Lifelong Learners. And that was through the Emeriti Association.
Okay.
So the core group from SAL approached Dean Fry, that was my boss in the College of Education, and they wanted support from the university. And so Dean Fry called me into that meeting because my job for her, I worked for her as an outreach manager. So I set up weekend evening courses, online courses. I had a children's camp, and I worked with pre-service teachers to write curriculum, and it was so much fun. It was so much work, but it was so much fun. That camp was full with a waiting list 2 times over every summer. But we did a lot of creative things. And when I asked Dr. Fry, honestly, I thought I was drawing the short straw when she said, I'm putting you in this project. And I was like, why me? And she said, because you're my mover and shaker. And so I frankly did not think people were going to be interested in going to classes and paying to go to class. But I was wrong for one time in my life. I was very wrong. So it started with 35 people, and it ended up with over 1,000 in 5 cities. So it was a long, hard road.
Well, when it was SAL, how many students? Was that the 35? You started with 35?
That was the 35, yeah.
Well, how long was it Sal before it became Ollie?
OLLI, well,
Roughly.
I think I'm not positive, but I think about a year.
Okay.
So initially what they had asked for was like, we need someone to make copies of stuff. We need someone to do mailings. We need someone to help us find instructors. And the list kept growing. And, but, you know, some of those people were very demanding and headstrong, and but thank God. And some of them were just, I just loved them so much. They were just so committed and so hardworking, and they were sure this community needed it. And they were right.
So, do you want to say who the group was that came to Dr. Fry?
Okay, I think that it definitely was Mona Long. She had moved to Stillwater from Enid, and she had started a similar program in Enid. And so when she moved here, she wanted to get one going immediately. And then Dr. Ed Arquette, and I believe he was retired chair of sociology, I think. And he had so many connections with Elder Hostel and so much experience. His experience was invaluable. I really appreciated him. Esther Winterfelt, who was in human sciences, just the most articulate, intelligent, quiet, but got things done. Mary Fry, Dr. Fry, who was retired from the College of Education, who just passed a few weeks ago and was just a dear friend of mine. If you can have a dear friend who is 30 plus years older than you, my gosh, I love that woman. She was just amazing. And Mary served from day one as our liaison to the College of Ed dean until she quit going to the program. So it was a good group, and they knew what they wanted, and we had to figure out the right way to get there.
And then I guess funding became an issue at some point.
So Ed Arquette learned about this grant with the Osher Foundation, and he found out about it because his former colleagues that worked in Elder Hostel from different universities, a lot of them had moved over to work with the Osher Foundation. And so we learned about the grant. We also learned at the same time, although there was funding available, that the Osher Foundation only wanted to fund existing programs in the state. And OU already had a program. They had a program, they had classroom space, they had a building, they had a director, an assistant director, administrative staff, and it had been running for years. So honestly, whenever I wrote that first grant, it was like a practice. And I haven't written a grant in a while. I'm going to try this. It's good for you. And so we did get funded, and it shocked me. It absolutely shocked me. And that gave us, I think it was $100,000, which we were like, whoo, that's a lot of money. And I think our first year we had to have 100 participants.
Okay.
So every year you were eligible to write for another grant. And every year you had a higher benchmark. And it was really not that hard at first. And then it was super hard. it was very difficult to get, our final number had, our first million, we had to get to 500 people. That was a challenge, but we did it. And then our second million, we had to be at over 1,000 members.
How much time did you have between? I mean, to get the 500, did you have a couple of years to do?
We had a couple of years, yes. And
so you needed a PR person.
Oh my goodness!
Or was that you?
It was. We kind of were, like, I'm really grateful for what we had support-wise from the College of Ed, but we were kind of an island unto ourselves. We were over in Scott Hall then, and we had to do our own marketing, our own catalog. We had to learn, printer software. We had to do all our own enrollment, even switching from doing everything by hand and everything being mailed in to switching to online enrollment for a non-programmer person to go through all the checks and balances of finding a program that was affordable, but OSU would approve them accepting payments through. And it was a lot. It was a big jump. I'm so old. I can tell you, I used to love when the mail would come in, stacks of envelopes. I'm like, it's working. So it was a big switch to go to online. But
do you remember where you were, what you were doing when you got the call or how you learned that the grant was approved?
Oh, on the big grant?
Yeah, the big one.
Yes, I was on vacation and I got a call and I was just going, oh my God. And my husband and kids thought something terrible had happened. It was just like, it was so exhausting to get to that point, but it was so rewarding. And it was so great because the structure of OLLI was set up, and Ed Arquette helped so much with this, the idea of this. So the structure was such that there was one board of directors that oversaw all the sites. And so we ended up in Stillwater, Tulsa, Bartlesville, Oklahoma City. And then we would go to like Edmond or Yukon or, branching out to different places. But every site had members who served on the board, the overall board. And then we had executive committees in every city. And the executive committees would help with membership, and most important job was the curriculum. And so membership, social committees, like you had to set up coffee and cookies and fig Newtons. And technology. And so there was a lot of working parts, and it wouldn't work without all these volunteers. And so by setting up this way, everybody had a voice. Everybody could participate in the decision making. The membership elected their executive committee chair and their curriculum chair. And so we tried to keep it, as a democracy. So every site was a little different, right? It was Stillwater had its own flavor of people. Tulsa had it, what they wanted in their classes. And so without that kind of structure, it would have been even more difficult. And we had people who worked like it was a full-time job sometimes.
Volunteer though.
Yes,
Except
volunteering.
for yours.
Yeah,
Except for yours.
except for mine. Yeah,
You were the only paid.
And then eventually I got a half-time administrative assistant, and I had site coordinators at every location, like a Stillwater site coordinator.
And they got paid.
They got paid,
Okay.
and it was, it was a challenging position to fill because you would work 6 weeks from 8 to 3:30, 2 days a week, and then you're off, and then you're back on. So some people loved it. Some people, it wasn't enough or it was too much. So, and then we had work studies.
Okay, students. Okay,
Yeah.
Well, that helped. Yeah.
Yeah.
So from once you got the grant, or even before the grant, were you full time doing that, or were you filling in with other?
Well, I was doing it as part of my job as a manager of outreach. Once we got funded for that first 100,000, then there was money for a director, and so then I accepted that job, and then Dean Fry cautioned me, "You're on soft money, and you have 3 children. I believe in you, but you better be careful." and I mean, it was something to consider,
Yes,
for sure. But
and about how many hours a week would you be putting in for this in the early days?
In the early days, 40 hours a week. In the latter days, easily 60.
Wow.
There was never a Christmas. I mean, not Christmas Day, but Christmas break, I was up there. I mean, it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. And I think there are things that I did that we could have not done. Like, for example, I always worried about people rushing out at lunch. And so I was like, we need to bring in catered lunches. Just all these little extra things that ended up eating so much time. To have catered lunches in 5 different cities, 2 days a week. And believe me, people had opinions. You would get notes. There is too much salt in the meatloaf. Okay, thank you for that.
That probably helped with membership, though, didn't it? To have that as a.
We thought it would, but it really helped the members that were there, and they did. And some people, for a lot of people, this was their only social interaction. And so to be able to sit down with people and enjoy lunch, it was just, I loved it. I loved it so much. The communities we built.
Yes, that was probably your most favorite thing. Huh?
Yes, it was.
People.
And then we had, coffee and tea and snacks, and everybody had opinions on the cookies. But I think we did. Maybe we didn't have to spend so much energy on all that, but we wanted it to be a comfortable place for people. And then
we meaning you?
We meaning I loved my people. And we, like, sometimes people would struggle finding the right book edition or something. So I'd put out on their enrollment form, you could order their books. I'd have their books all ready and with the receipt. And so somebody from the social committee would hand out books ahead of time, and little things to try to make it easy, which was a lot for 1,000 people at the end.
Yes.
So,
All logistics to work through too.
yes.
Yeah. Or was there something that just the absolute most challenging? Was it hard finding instructors?
That was challenging. So our instructors were all volunteers. And some universities, with OSHR, there were, I believe the highest number they had was like 124 OLLI institutes throughout the country, mostly in California. But, and some of those schools paid their instructors. We did not have that kind of money. And I'm glad we never did, because number one, had we paid them, it would have been insulting for the type of people we had teaching for us. Number two, a lot of those institutions have since had to back off and say, yeah, we've been paying you for 10 years, but we're out of money now. We can't do it. So the route we took, and I feel like we always held firm with this, is we said it's a prestigious program. It's an honor to be able to teach for OLLI. And I feel like it was. There were a lot of people who asked to teach that were not that great of instructors, and we gently turned them away. But my goodness, we had some rock stars. I mean, just the most impressive people and so we had a lot of retired university faculty, and then we had people who were currently teaching. I'll give you an example. Like at OSU Tulsa OSU School of Medicine, we had a guy who taught for us for probably 6 or 7 years, and he loved teaching OLLI people because he said medical school students, they won't ask you any questions. And he just loved the interaction, that people truly were wanting to hear what he had to say and wanting to learn. And we had Ken Neal, the retired Tulsa World editor. Oh my gosh, he was so good. He knew so much, and he could control a class with 90 people in it. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. We had people from TU come and teach for us. We had Harvey Pratt, who was an OSBI forensic artist. He's done artwork for the Smithsonian. He came and taught in Oklahoma City, and you could have heard a pin drop. He was so phenomenal. We've just had so many great, gifted instructors who really believed in what we were trying to do. Dr. Mary Jane Ward, who taught at OSU for so many years, and I remember whenever she came out, she was backstage at the Stillwater Library, and she looked around the curtain and said, I've never had a class this big in my life. And it was around 100 people. And they were golden. Oh, they ate up every word she said. Meredith Woodruff Garner, she is a retired CIA agent. She had 140 people in her class.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot. You have no idea. OLLI audiences can get talky, right? Something occurs and they'll yell it out. And so to be able to stay on track, and most of our OLLI students were well educated and appreciated everything she had to offer. So it truly was a lot of work, but it was a wonderful ride. It really was.
Was there a cap on how many people could come?
Yes.
In some of them, I guess.
like in Stillwater, we had problems a couple times at the library because we exceeded capacity. And people get upset, but you have to mind fire code. Tulsa, it happened twice. Stillwater, we had more capacity in the rooms. But yeah, there were wait lists. That was sad, but it was exciting to be able to fill a classroom to capacity and say, sorry, that was.
So then you'd repeat it maybe.
Yes.
If you had a wait list, and it's good ammo to do it, do it again.
It was fun. And also when we started, we had a professor from English named Duke Pesta. And oh my gosh, we had Duke groupies. Whenever he left OSU, somebody said our whole program's going to crater. And I thought, oh my gosh, he pulls in the numbers. It was a concern, but we had radio personalities. The guy from Bartlesville who interviewed me about the OLLI program, he said, gosh, that sounds fun. I'd like to teach for you. And he taught for us for many years. He taught film classes, and he taught at the Circle Cinema in Tulsa and in Bartlesville. And then we had John Erling. He was from KRMG in Tulsa. We had Clayton Vaughn, who was like a staple, I think, on Channel 8. And so we had a lot of really big names. We had Ken Busby do travel trips for us. A lot of really big names. And you had that freedom to develop courses without the parameters set on you by department heads or.
That's true, yeah.
But still.
And no homework.
And well, we said no tests, no grades, no homework, but these people, OLLI people, like to read and they like to be challenged. So they always wanted their books early. They always wanted handouts. So there wasn't required homework, but it always cracked me up. People who had notebooks and took meticulous notes and always thought, what are you going to do with that?
Had recommended reading instead of assigned reading.
Yeah. But if, like, we had a class, we had very few curriculum courses where we purchased curriculum. But we did great decisions, and I believe they still do it today. Great decisions in every city. And that was a phenomenal class and very difficult to staff with experts, experts on Putin or experts on China but that one, they all wanted their books early so they could read everything and then go to the class and then go do their own research and keep those books. And then, like, we had one, this is a funny story. We had this one lady teaching about crime in Oklahoma, and she's I believe the head librarian at Stillwater Library. She was teaching this course, and I'm telling you, they didn't take a break. After an hour, they could not get enough of it. And then I get a call. Somebody yells down the hall, Lewis has gone down, fallen out of his chair. And I run in there, and I'm just frantic, and I'm calling 911, and I'm calling my guy at the College of Ed to hack into our enrollment system so I can call his family, and he's having a heart attack. And as they're wiggling him out, he says, I want those GD handouts. Cracked me up. He recovered, but Oh my gosh, it cracked me up. I was just crying, and he was worried about the handouts.
I don't think they could have picked anybody better than you to do this.
It was a lot of fun. It was very challenging, but it was a lot of fun.
Try anything that didn't quite work?
Oh, certainly. Things that you think are going to be a big hit and they're not. And so we always tried to, like, for example, in Oklahoma City, I think things started shifting a little bit where people's behavior was not quite what it was in the beginning. So with everybody. So we had a course in Oklahoma City, and it was on the Constitution. And I had one person recommended to me, and I didn't know him, and I was not entirely settled with using him. I don't know why, but he said, I need a copy of the pocket Constitution. And I said, sure, I'll order that. Well, I'd rather use my own. And I said, no, I'm going to order it because I want to get large print. And, they were like a couple bucks a piece. So I ordered them. He had taught this class before for someone else. And when class started, he said, okay, we're going to start the class with a prayer. And if you don't believe in my prayer, then you can get up and leave right now. We're at the Oklahoma History Center. Like a whole class, like a bunch of kindergartners, they all turn around and look at me. And I was like, okay, we're part of Oklahoma State University. You can do what you want to do, but we're not going to start class with a prayer. It's just it's a class. And so that was like a 10-minute back and forth. Then he picked up all the pocket constitutions that I had purchased and had his own. And it was not the verbatim Constitution. And so what we decided as a class after a lot of griping was it's a good opportunity for all of us to hear a side we may not have heard before. It was a good learning experience, but it was not a good class. And people were mad about it. But
asked for a refund.
Yeah, they did. Believe me, they were refund people. And I'll give it to them. It was definitely not up to par with what we normally did. It's, people have opinions, but we tried to provide an academic course, right?
So you would put him on the do not ask again.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. But the breadth of the programs we were able to offer, and like in Tulsa, we did the Tulsa race riot. And I believe, we were one of the first people to offer that class. That was, and I went and picked up the survivors. And here I'm a native Tulsan. I had never heard of it in my whole life. I went to a college prep school, never heard of it ever. And it was just the most moving, phenomenal class. We had middle school kids who got excused from school to go sit in there. I remember we had a postman who ran his route as fast as he could so he could get there by 1:00 and sit in. And then there were people there in the audience, in the classroom, who remember being small and their family hiding the maid or hiding the lawn guy, and the same feeling of fear. And it was absolutely shocking to me that I knew nothing of it, that it was not in the textbooks. And these survivors, they were just the sweetest, most polite, answered questions. Of course, they were little. The one lady said, "Now, I was in utero. Do you people know what that means?" It cracked me up. But that class, people were weeping. I was weeping. I was filming it and I was crying. It was so moving. And the class instructor just handed out sheets of paper, and people stood up and read a firsthand account. And I mean, it was deeply moving. So that one, some of Mary Jane Ward's Indian history classes, these are things that my OLLI people, at the average age of 73, had never learned about in their whole life. And
the Angie DeVoe and
yes,
that, yeah.
Yes. The Osage Reign of Terror, and we did a travel trip and went and saw the church and the cemetery, and it was very, very moving and sad. But the OLLI students really loved learning about this, and they kind of felt like they were gypped not knowing it earlier.
Sure. So if you did travel trips, you had different formats then.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't just all instruction, classroom instruction.
No. So typically, like with Mary Jane Ward's classes, she would have handouts that we would send to them prior to the class, or the book, maybe her book. I think it was called The Wolf Has Come, The Civil War in the Indian Territory. They would read that, and then they would have points of interest that we would visit, and then she would stop and have handouts and explain things along the way. Sometimes we'd have a short film on the bus, and she would be lecturing as we were going on the bus. And we did a class called I Want to Run Away and Join the Circus. I loved that class. I had so much fun with my people. But Luann Waters taught that class, and I knew of her because she had taught for me on the weekend evening classes in my previous job. And that was fun. That was so much fun. We all stayed at a hotel there. We got a tour of the elephant sanctuary. We got to learn all about the history of the two circuses in Oklahoma that stayed in Hugo, Oklahoma. And Luann said the original Marlboro Man lives there. And I was like, I have got to meet him. We never met him. They said he worked security at the casino, but we were deprived of that. They had so much fun on those trips. It was just such a joy to spend that time with them. And
that definitely was not an 8-hour day.
No.
We went all the way to Hugo.
And the travel trips, surprisingly, it was a lot of our most elderly people who went. And that always surprised me. So it was a lot of work because you sure don't want someone falling or getting hurt. So you have to be running to hold an elbow if somebody's looking shaky, or, we traveled on the bus. I always had an extra wheelchair, extra walker, a cane. It just, we went on this one trip, which was just to Norman, and I saw from the time we were loading the bus, this one guy was going to struggle. And I said, hold the bus. I've got a wheelchair at my house. My dad's old wheelchair. Drove like crazy to my house, grabbed that wheelchair, forgot the foot thingies, and ended up taking the strap of my purse, hooking it under his feet. But he was able to make the whole trip. It was just, there was always a challenge. It was, now the craziest trip was when we went to see the Dalai Lama. And University of Arkansas had an OLLI program, and they wanted to do some joint projects together. And they were hosting the Dalai Lama. And I shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to. My dad was like, you need to get a bus and take us to see the Dalai Lama. And I'm like, no way. And then he said, all right, then I'm going to call Burns Hargis and tell him you won't take us. And I was like, Dad, seriously, I can't do that. Okay, so we did do it. And we had 50 people, max amount of people we could have, travel to Arkansas. And we got there, and I had my GA who was like 20 years older than me. He was helping me. And we got there, and everything that could go wrong went wrong. First off, the golf carts they had to take you up the hills that they so sweetly arranged to have meet our bus. When they got loaded, they would not make it up the hill. So me and Larry are trying to push these golf carts with 6 OLLI people apiece in there, and then it wasn't going to work. So we had to get people off and hold on to them or help walk them up the hills. And so that took a lot of time, and people were getting tired. And so we get everybody. Oh, and then I lost my dad, and like a mature professional woman, I started crying, and Larry Perkins was cracking up. He was like, no one's going to steal him. Okay, he's fine. He's not a cute little child. We find him and my mom, and they're the last of the 50. We get everybody seated. We're sitting in this stadium, and I see my OLLI people start nodding off because they're tired right when the Dalai Lama starts speaking. And then the police come up to me and say, are you RuthAnn Sirbaugh? And I said, yeah. And they said, you need to come with us. And so I go in this little room, and they have one of my OLLI people who had just, I think, gotten too hot and just was sick. It broke my heart. Just sick and scared. And I said, you need to let him take you to the hospital. And she was very upset. And so they took her to the hospital, and I am just frantic. How am I going to get her back? Well, Mary Fry was there, and Mary knows everybody in every corner of the world. And she said, all right, we're going to go to the fried chicken place, and I'm going to spring her. And I said, how are you going to spring her? And she said, don't worry about it. I'm going to spring her, and I'll have them drop her at the chicken place. Oh, you darn. This couple pulls up, and they have her in the back seat with the fresh shirt on, and hold her arms, walk her into the restaurant. Everybody was cheering. It was so cute. And then And then we are coming back to Tulsa to drop off the Tulsa people. And I mean, it has been a day, and there's a tornado in the distance. And the bus driver says, should I turn the lights on and wake everybody up? And I was like, are you going to stop? No. Is it going to make any difference if they all know a tornado's coming? He said no. We were like, no, just keep going. So we missed the tornado, but when we stopped in Tulsa, there were cars with branches on them and a windshield broken. We had to clean all that off, arrange for rides with people who were too shook up to drive. And my gosh, that was a trip. I don't know what the Dalai Lama said, but he gave me no inner peace that day. Oh my goodness.
Well, maybe he did. It could have been twice as bad. Twice as bad.
It was a good story. We were
But
like,
you didn't resign the next day.
no, I didn't. And it was so funny because the evaluations of the trip were just glowing. I was like, I saw you sleeping. No. But we had fun. We had fun.
It may have been the only opportunity some of them have to go out of, out of the Stillwater or Tulsa area. Or, I don't know.
We had a good time, yep.
Keep a journal on all of these. So besides travel and then classes, I read you did town halls.
Mm-hmm.
How did that figure in?
So in Stillwater, we started, and every Tuesday at 1, we would have a town hall, which was just a one-time talk, and it could be anything from the state of OSU, like Burns Hargis did a couple, or current political things, and everyone who was a member could go to town hall free. So you would have 130 people there. We had a guy come in from Dallas on his own dime to talk about the JFK assassination, just different one-offs from a class, but things of current interest.
They were popular enough to keep doing.
Oh, yeah. They're
yeah.
still very popular. We did them in Tulsa. We did a program in Oklahoma City at St. Luke's Church where we tried to work with the OU OLLI, and we called it Bedlam Learning Series. So we would pick a topic, and then OU would have a presenter, and then we would have a better one. And those would have, I don't know, maybe 50 or so people attend.
That's reasonable, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
So the smallest class might be how big? 10, 15, 20?
Like we always said 10, but honestly, we ran some with 7. Like some of the art classes that worked better. And then we also had classes like Mahjong or Zentangle or something that you could only have X number of people. And so every class was not meant to be a big gangbuster class. We tried to have 1 big class and 2 moderate or smaller classes. And you have to remember, we rented classroom space everywhere we went. So at one time we had 47 sites. So that is
A lot.
like, as I would be driving into Tulsa, I'd be going, okay, coffee takes 32 minutes to percolate. Coffee, then projector, then, just setting everything up and setting up chairs and making sure your speakers were loud enough for your audience to hear. And you're always going to have tech problems. I remember on the Tulsa Race Riot class, something went out, the projector or something, and the news station in Tulsa was filming it. And that night, my kids and my husband and I were watching the news, and my daughter said, Mom, I was literally crawling behind the speaker. And she said, your underwear is showing. And it was. But I was crawling in my suit to try to, I fixed it, but to try to fix it. It was, and that you just had to tell people, there's always going to be tech problems. Just give me 30 seconds, okay? And they would sit there. You got 2 more seconds. And then they'd cheer when it worked. And we had all refurbished equipment from the College of Ed. So when they would, put a laptop to go into surplus, they would give me first dibs. So we had older equipment, and we had projectors from surplus. Every room had a different projector. And then you had to have speakers. It
Took a lot of
was
organizing.
very stressful, challenging. And you couldn't you had to be organized. You couldn't leave here and then go, oh, I forgot the books for great decisions, or
You couldn't wing it.
You couldn't wing it. You had to be organized. It was, but I tell you, the first day of classes, I loved when everything was set up and I had my laptop and I had a line to the door of people waiting to walk in and do enrollments on the spot. And I feel like I've worked with every age group, but I told my kids I think I held hands more with OLLI people than 5-year-olds, because they just, a lot of people had nothing else. They were alone. And just the sense of community was, they were helpful to each other, kind, reach out. Even some of the most obnoxious students we had, when they got hurt and had no one to depend on, people would go drop meals by. And I mean, it was truly moving. I loved it. I really did. People would say just cry on the last day of classes because they would miss it. So
They were 6 weeks.
Mhm.
Weeks on, and then it'd be another couple, how many months before the next one?
So we did 3 weeks in the summer, we did 6 in the fall and in the spring, and there was we would start spring in February and fall in September.
It's 15 weeks out of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
what are they doing the other? I guess that's a
But
long
the
time.
other really cool thing was there were friendships formed that,
Carried
there are
over.
people that travel overseas together now that have, that met at OLLI, and, they're lifelong friends now. In Bartlesville, it was so cute because our first day of class, people were saying, I think our kids played ball together in kindergarten, and they hadn't talked to each other in that long. And it was sweet. It was very nice. It was a great community.
Did they call you at all hours?
Yes,
Yeah.
they did. And I would say it was a very challenging job, but it's hard when people get old. And I remember my husband and I going to check on one of our teachers, one of our instructors, who I could tell he was not doing well. And we couldn't find him. We called the sheriff. His car was running. His dogs were barking. We couldn't get in the house. And they found him 2 days later, walking in the rain, no clothes on, holding his little toy piano. Those things killed me. Those things were hard. I spent a lot of time at hospitals. I spent a lot of times holding hands. You knew when somebody was starting to fail, and if they didn't show up for class, I'd be worried sick. It was, I wasn't very good at letting go with that,
It would be hard. How do you,
Yeah. But I don't regret ever being in that position, but it's, if you're a soft-hearted person like me, it's hard on you,
Hard. Well, what did you do to take care of yourself?
Not much. No, it was, but they were a great community, and
the good outweighed the other.
And I will tell you, like, when my father passed, that's when I came back to work, and I was like, I'm going to write this second grant. I don't know why, for the $2 million. And I wrote it, and it came back with all these things that needed to be changed. And I feel like I was just very deeply grieving then. But Kent Olson, who was I believe the chair of economics department, he was on our board, and I would have never made it through that second grant had he not lined everything out financially, everything that they wanted from OSU, and they wanted a big commitment. And Kent was just so focused and meticulous, and I wouldn't have made it through that process without him. So I had like really great support, and I really love those people. I still do. They're my buddies still.
And you keep some of them laughing, so you're being a comic has come in handy.
Oh my goodness, we had to be a comic at different times. When I was taking care of my brother who was ill in Tulsa, even some of my Tulsa ladies, they were like saying, I heard you're in Tulsa. I heard your brother's got cancer. We're going to take you out to lunch. And I said, I can't get away. And they were like, yes, we're taking you to lunch. They were so sweet and so insistent. But it was a wonderful ride. And the sweetest thing, whenever I left the job, which was, oh my gosh, so hard, such a tough decision. But when they had the banquet and they honored me when I retired, then they sang God Bless America. It was so cute. They all stood up and sang that. It was just adorable. So, but I left OLLI and I went to human sciences, and I was there a few months, and the colleges merged. And then I was over the continuing ed programs for human sciences. Then the dean put me over continuing ed for human sciences and College of Ed, which included OLLI. So I was like, can I not quit this job?
What prompted you to take that step?
To leave OLLI? Mm-hmm. For years, I was saying, it's going to get easier. It's going to get easier. And I feel like I just realized it was not going to get easier. And now there's a lot more help for OLLI now. Mm-hmm. And so that's really good. But it was a lot of work. And emotionally, it was a lot of work. Yes. But I had a job offer on the table and they kept saying, "Are you going to take this?" And I was like, I don't know if I can leave OLLI. I know I applied. But it was fine.
You left it in good shape.
Honestly,
Yeah.
I did. I had the whole next semester laid out. I had all the teachers set up. I had all the course write-ups. I had all the sites reserved. I had the catalog made. I did not want the program to suffer because they didn't have anyone running it for a while. So,
Well, was funding pretty secure at that point too?
Yes,
That
yes.
was a big accomplishment.
it truly was. So the funding is held in the foundation, and they generate quite a bit off the interest. We never. I don't know about now, but when I was there, we never dipped into the principal, and I was very, very frugal, and I'm glad I was, because I don't think they would have made it through COVID without having those funds. So,
and you were already gone from probably about that time.
I was gone, but then
not gone.
but then supervising that program. So that was good, because I was able to help the new director kind of get her bearings. And
well, so while you mentioned COVID, how did that impact it? From what you know, how did that impact?
Well, so I would say OLLI is, maybe it's more important the social aspect of it. So through the years, we would always ask, take evaluations, and seek input on online courses. And there was zero interest. They didn't want to do that. They liked meeting with their friends and eating Fig Newtons. And anyway, with COVID, they had to make that turn. They had to, or they would have nothing. You could not risk putting these people in a room together. You absolutely could not. So they do have online courses now. They do have courses that are, I know this because my son, who was my work study, is their tech person. So they do live stream classes now, and they save all those, and people can access them whenever. And so that was a big pivot, and I think necessary. And there's people who may have been ill for a couple weeks who never would have returned to OLLI, and this way they could still be engaged with it. And so I think that I think they fell to about 200 members.
Out of 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, a big drop.
It's a big drop. Now, when I was at the helm, the OOHRP Foundation was so very strict on numbers. I think since COVID, they realized they cannot be that way. Like one year, I think we were 34 short, and President Hargis got a call. And I was shocked. I expected to get a mean letter, "You're 34 people short." But no, they called the president's office. So they were very serious about your membership quota. And so I think it's a lot more lax, and I think they, are trying to help people build the programs back up again. But it definitely took a big hit. It was a challenge.
Well, part of that is technology too, I guess, on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, on the other side. So you don't have to do the OSHA grant every couple of years now. You're set.
That the last $1 million grant was the most you could apply for.
Okay.
And all those funds were expended.
Okay.
And Bernard Osher, who started this foundation, he truly believed in adult education and integrative medicine. That's where he put all his money. So he's a very nice man. He very personable, very down
You
to
got to
earth.
meet him?
Yes, we would have a conference every 18 months, and all the Ollies would come together. And first, they paid for everything, your travel, and you got to take one volunteer with you. And you'd meet in different areas, and like the Broadmoor or something. It was always very elegant, very wonderful, and it was great because some of the things you struggled with, you learned everybody struggled with, and you were there to learn from and help each other. And I remember the Ollie in Austin, they were saying one time this lady had a big Xerox machine delivered, and then she came in behind the truck and said, "All right, I paid for this, but I need to be reimbursed immediately." We're like, what? But you always had a few people like that in your Ollies. So I remember being told one time, you were not to so much as buy an inkjet cartridge without my approval. And I was like, now who are you? But you learn people are dealing with the same challenges all over, and you networked on good class ideas and fundraising. That was the worst part of the job. All these things, online enrollment programs, that was great for me to learn what everybody was using and how they implemented all that.
So if you were building up your network even at that point too, if you had a question, you could email some of the other directors across the country or call.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they were a lovely group of people. They really were.
Mostly female?
No, I mean, yeah, mostly more female than males, but there were a lot of males there. So
I just was curious.
I know. But some schools had like the dean of a department was the director or something, even though he really didn't do the work. And so he would come, or it was interesting. And it was interesting to network with the volunteers people brought. That was always a big thing. Who are you going to take with you this year? And you have to go, who would be fun for 3 days? And
who went last time? Yeah. I mean,
yes, you had to rotate things. Yeah.
Well, did you have swag?
Yes, we had swag. We had swag, and then we didn't. I didn't spend a lot on swag because, we were a fledgling program, and I feel like that mostly is throwaway money. But we gave instructor gifts. That was, with Ollie on it, we'd give like cups or umbrellas, which I came to realize was not really that important to the instructor. It was just us being thankful for the course, because, that's 12 lecture hours, and usually you triple that and at least in preparing the course. So
most are happy with the lunch or a cookie, huh?
Yes, they got lunch. They did get lunches, and they got an umbrella.
And it seems like later you got membership for a year.
You did,
or could attend.
Yes, they did get membership, and they could gift that to somebody. So
that ultimately didn't cost you anything, but it was a good gesture.
Now with the Osher Foundation, every scholarship membership if you were to count it, it had to be covered with funds.
Okay, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
Did you do T-shirts?
we did T-shirts one year. Not very many people wore, but we did do T-shirts one year.
Maybe that's an age thing too, you know.
I know. One year at Town Hall when Ann Hargis was going to speak about Pizza Posse, I had seen in surplus all the old band hats, all the old Stetsons from marching band. They were all in surplus. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. The news press is coming out. I'm going to give everybody a hat to wear when Ann Hargis and the director of HR, Jamie Payne, and Ann's assistant,
Andrea Cost.
Yes, came out. And so we gave everybody a hat, but they were not as amused as I was. So, like the front row they were kind of sourpusses with their hats on. But Anne was really cracking up about it. And then when we went to return them to surplus told us they have to go back in the boxes they came from. So we're out there in those metal buildings trying to match up 100 and some hats with the boxes. That was kind of a bust. But
not what you planned to do that
not
day.
what we planned. But I'll also say, without the support of Ann and Burns Hargis, I don't know if we would have made that second million. They flew out to San Francisco. Yes, they were full-fledged supporters of the program. They really were. When I initially met with Burns Hargis, I met with him with Pam Fry, our dean, and we were talking about providing this program. And I said, OSU does nothing for their retirees but ask them for money. And I thought Pam Fry was going to faint. And I didn't say it to be affrontive or it was just the facts. And he thought, and he said, you're right, that's true. And so from then on, he was a big supporter of OLLI. He spoke, he promoted us. He had Gary Clark, his chief legal counsel, work with us. Like I said, he and Ann flew to San Francisco and met with Bernard Osher, wanted to show them OSU was fully committed to the program, and they were tremendous. They really were.
I'm imagining their names got some new members in Oklahoma City than
Yes.
having them attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You've had some fun.
I have had some fun.
I can picture you in the early days. And you may not have, but with a big old board saying, "How are we going to work all this in?"
I know. I honestly just thought it was going to be so easy from the beginning. I truly did, compared to what I was doing, and it was easy in the beginning. But then it certainly grew.
13 years, that's a long time too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of long days, I imagine.
Yes.
So in between the times when the session, once you got the session for 3 weeks up and running, and then there's a break before the next one, what sort of things would you be doing? Oh, you're getting ready for the next one, I know, but that's a pretty long gap sometimes.
Well, so recruiting instructors, helping them write curriculum, lining out classes, lining out tours, making sure our sites were ready. That just choosing the sites were, I had a learning curve on that. I had rented a place once that had metal folding chairs. And by the end of that 2-hour class, my gosh, I felt like the most horrible person on earth. Those people could hardly stand. And at the first OSHR conference, the director said, the most important thing is comfortable chairs. And I was like, boy, now we know. But yeah, we had to go through, and we had closets at some places that we had to completely empty of our tech and our food and our, all our supplies. Working on that catalog, oh my gosh, that catalog killed me, because we had photographs of all the instructors in there with the bios. We had the covers had photographs of our members on there. They would say, who's going to be the next model for spring? It was a lot of work. And then once we did the online program, then we had to set everything up on the online program. And it was some work and lots of meetings. So curriculum committee be meeting in Stillwater one day, Tulsa the next. So I was just running around. Yes.
You get gas reimbursement?
Yes, I did. I absolutely did. And, we would partner with, say, the Tulsa Ballet. And so I learned I would have to go through those sites and make sure there weren't 10 sets of stairs. And so as these things were developing, then I would be visiting sites, making sure everything was set up. And
you got familiar with ADA then?
Oh, yes, I did. We had classes at the food bank in Tulsa, cooking classes, wine tasting classes.
I bet those were popular.
Yes, they were. They absolutely were. And they were a lot of fun. And so mostly I had a lot of fun. I learned an awful lot. I didn't get a sit in on very many classes, but sometimes I was site coordinator too. And when I could sit in, I learned a lot. So
when you retired, did you join?
No, I did not, because I think they do this with some denominations of church. They say, when the minister retires, don't go back to that church. And when I would see OLLI people, they would always say, I'm unhappy about this, or I
kind of have to divorce yourself from it.
Yes,
for a while.
I didn't feel like it was a good path forward for the new people. Now, I did, when I oversaw the program after I left it, I did fill in a couple times, when they were short-staffed. But no.
So when since you're planning to move, will you do it at the next location so you won't have that connection?
I don't know. I mean,
if it has one, it may not have.
It may not have one. We don't know where we're going to go. So,
okay.
I don't know. I truly did love it. I love the camaraderie. It's not that I'm against going. I just feel like maybe a little more breathing room, right? It's a good thing.
When you leave town, are you going to tell some of these other ones so they can have another farewell party? I guess.
I don't know. I don't know about that. My son says every time he goes to work a site, the most common question is, how's your mom doing? Or tell your mom hi, which is so sweet, because I really do have a connection to those people. And
send once a year Christmas card.
Yeah, really.
Long mailing address list. Wow. So I guess there's been a couple of highlights. You've talked about some of them, but are there other highlights you want to mention that just pop out? Highlights from your 13 years doing it?
Well, I truly really enjoyed meeting all these different people from different walks of life. I truly enjoyed meeting new people, and I loved seeing, it was people, I loved seeing people teach about things that they loved. And they, for example, my old boss from finance department in the College of Business, he was a whiz at teaching finance courses, but then he pivoted and did courses on photography and travel in Europe. And he was like a whole different person. He was, I have a friend who, my oldest son, his son grew up together. I've known him forever. And when he taught for OLLI, I saw a whole different man. He was just so passionate about the mesonet, and it was just it was great to see those transformations and how really gifted instructors could pivot and change topics, and see people who had taught middle school, like in Oklahoma City, one of our rock star literature instructors, he taught middle school in Oklahoma City and then came and taught for OLLI. They loved him. He did tell me, he was probably 15 years younger than most of them. And he told me he broke something and he had to go to rehab. And the only room was at Epworth Villa, which is one of our sites in Oklahoma City. And he said he came out of his rehab room to go down to eat in his wheelchair. He said, "My God, my whole class was there." And they were like, "You can just teach here now." But it was fun. It was a great community to be a part of.
And there was no downtime. It doesn't sound like
No.
any downtime.
No, I lost so much vacation leave because I never could take it, but it's all right. I have had some crummy jobs in my life, but mostly I've done what I've loved, and I consider myself very lucky, that I was able to have this kind of career.
A long way from being a comic writer or whatever.
Comedy writer,
Yeah,
yes.
comedy
I
writer.
may still do that. No.
Well, you've got some good material to,
Yeah, I
draw,
do.
to draw from, I would think.
I could write a sitcom on OLLI.
I guess the official name, is it OLLI at OSU, or could you just call it OLLI? Or does it have
It's
to have the
Osher
at
Lifelong
OSU?
Learning Institute at Oklahoma
At.
State University.
Okay.
And the Osher Foundation sets that.
Okay. Yeah, I wondered about that. Did they ever come visit someone from there?
Yes, they have. And so, and then Ed knew some of the people who worked there too.
Okay.
I can't remember his name. It was right when we were leaving, but one of the executive team, he grew up in Tulsa. And so he came through when he was visiting his mom's side of the family, and came through from San Francisco.
That's pretty cool too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did Dr. Arquette ever teach a class for it?
Oh, yes.
Did he?
And, he again was another one who, he taught some sociology classes, but he and his wife, Andrea, taught a course on the national parks. And I think he
That's
had
always
like
popular.
8.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And he's so meticulous about his presentations and his photographs. And I think he had like 80 people in there.
Oh. What about the other members of that core, early core? Esther. Did Esther?
Esther taught, yes. Larry Perkins was part of the I don't know if he was on the initial committee, but he was one of the early movers and shakers. And he taught, his son taught for us. His son did travel trips for us, Stephen Perkins. And yes, Larry is one of my favorite characters in OLLI.
Yeah, I think you said he tell funny things would happen, or he would tell that he was one of the funnier. Funny story you had him in it.
Yes, it's true. He's a funny guy. He's a great guy. He would just look at you when bad things happen and laugh. So it was great, and I think Larry helped us get some of our topic experts for great decisions. And when you're thinking about downtime and you have 6 topic experts to find for just one course, it was a lot of hustling to be done.
A lot of phone calls or a lot of emailing or what?
And a lot of stopping by and shaking hands. As Barbara Mintmeyer used to say, you're a glad hander. And I was like, what does that mean? She goes, you just shake hands with people all the time. And I did. I would go visit department heads and say, do you have any rising stars who need to teach? And so we had a few youngsters, young faculty who taught for us. And we had a few that taught and were not very polished and became very polished. So they had helpful hints from the audience. Your board skills need improvement, or you need to talk to us, or you're going too fast. So,
or speak louder.
Yes.
Was there any sessions that you didn't? It's right up to the point where you didn't know if you were going to have that class or not. Like if you needed 3 classes.
Oh my God! Great Decisions was like that constantly. It was. I mean, we knew we had the classes set up, but the topic experts, that was just always a challenge. And then, as I said, as I feel like people started at a certain point, maybe around 2015, 2016, I feel like sometimes there was bad behavior that we had to publish a code of conduct, which I could never imagine being like that. But people felt like they could yell things out, or like if we had a Muslim speaker, sometimes people were not very nice. One time we had a class and we brought in 4 dreamers, and they were young. They were in school, and they were talking about their experience. It was very emotional for them to open up like that. And we had someone that I just had to have him leave, just go. He was just going, get out of our country, quit taking my kids' jobs. And I was like, your kids are in their 60s, okay? But it was not polite. It was, and I don't feel like prior to this time we had that kind of behavior very often.
I wonder what triggered it.
Yeah.
You don't have to answer that.
But we had someone slam out of a church we were renting, and slam so bad I thought the glass was going to break. And I asked her not to come back. But then she did come back in 2 weeks, and she was crying, and she said, I behaved horribly. I'm sorry. That was terrible. And, I was so strict. I was like, all right, come back. But there were people who were not, that were just wanting to be confrontational. And that was something new. And that was hard to deal with, when you're trying to be respectful to people. And
your educational psych classes came in handy those days.
yes, that was hard to deal with, because you certainly don't want to embarrass someone by throwing them out. And I think sometimes they didn't realize how bad their behavior was, but it affected the whole class.
Yeah.
And
you were responsible for.
Yes, and I was not going to bring speakers in and have them insulted.
Did the speakers ever complain to you about any?
Well,
like
I think those little dreamers, one of them was crying. But the great thing was that during break, the rest of the class was going over there and being overly kind. And so we had classes on Islam. People had opinions, but I'm like, either do you want to learn about it, or do you have opinions already and they're set in stone? If that's the case, go pick another class. If you want to be respectful and learn, then you're welcome here.
So you had to you had to be strong some days too, huh?
I did. I felt like a junior high principal some days.
Wow. Jack of all trades. You probably didn't know from one day to the next what you might have to deal with.
And some people, as they age, they change. Their personalities change. And I think some people in their later years were not the same people they were when we first met them.
Hmm.
I had one instructor who was the most polished speaker and so articulate. And after he had a stroke, he took a semester off. He came back, and his wife told me he's been very emotional, and he just could not get through it without crying. And it was not cry kind of stuff. But his class with 90 people were all they knew these things. They knew them before me. They knew what was happening, and they were kind and patient. And he ultimately said, I don't think I can teach anymore because I keep crying. I think he was just so embarrassed.
Did you finish the 6 weeks, or just you found someone to fill
in? But I had an instructor in that class who taught other classes who would just get up and help. Get up and start a discussion and not step over him, not step on him, not be disrespectful, just very gracefully step up and kind of take over until he could compose himself.
Some of those skills come with age, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Or at least I think they do. Wow. Okay, so biggest surprises. Was there anything that just surprised you, just totally surprised you? Either, I don't know, from the planning stage, from the people, or anything like that, from yourself? That you could handle all this so graciously yourself? That probably did not surprise you. You have the knack.
I think some of the biggest things that surprised me were the commitment of our volunteers, how much joy people got from both teaching and learning, and how much I love those people. I loved them. I cared for them so much. So in my next life, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be more hardcore.
Yeah,
But
I doubt it.
yeah.
I doubt that.
It was a great ride. It really was.
So after you'd had a day or a week or two after you moved on from that to another job, did you think, I wish I could go back? Or because you did have some hands, overseeing some of it at that point too?
Well, when I started my next job,
Mm-hmm.
I was just tortured because there was not much work to do, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't take this. That was horrible. I cannot sit, so that was horrible. I did miss the excitement of OLLI for sure, the challenge of it, but I think I was worn out by the time I left.
Did you help with hiring the next person?
I did. I did.
Job description of it was interesting if you were truthful.
Exactly. Well, and the other thing, like I said, we were just kind of running our own program. So whenever they were picking a team to interview the applicants, it occurred to them they didn't really know what the job entailed. So Ed Arquette was on that committee with me and my current boss, and who was my current boss, an associate dean in human sciences, and the dean and the CFO. So we did not have a whole lot of applicants. And the first person who took the job after I left was put in as an interim when the college was combining. And I think she made it 2 weeks and left. So I was like, I've already done all the work. This is nothing. But
you have a procedure handbook written for the next person?
I absolutely did. I absolutely did. I had hyperlinks and everything. And I'm just going to say, don't waste your time. I mean, I think it was like 100 pages long. And I would get calls all the time. Where's this? How do you do this? And I'm like, it's in the handbook. I don't think people read handbooks.
No.
But it was all there.
It's easier to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Well, I figured you would have something written down.
Yeah.
At least.
It was hard to let go of my baby, so I had to make sure they had a soft landing.
Where was the office space by that point?
At that point, it was still in Scott Hall, which I loved Scott Hall. I mean, it's old, but we had room and...
They're on the first floor?
Mm-hmm. First floor. So my OLLI people could...
get to it.
They had handicap parking right there. They could come in. But then after the colleges merged, then they wanted all the continuing ed programs on one hall in human sciences. Mm-hmm. So OLLI was moved over there reluctantly. Like we almost had to drug them to move them over there. But
well, it is a harder building to navigate.
Yes. So that they're still over there on first floor.
Okay.
And it was a lot less space than what we had in Scott, We had a lot of storage space. I had a freezer in there that we could keep all our fig Newtons. And all our books, we had that all organized, and we had a lot of space over there. And when it's 10 o'clock at night, nobody knows if you're working barefoot. In Scott Hall, nobody goes there. So that was a transition for them.
More visible too, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, or potentially more visible.
Mm-hmm.
I would think merging those two colleges was not easy either. So
And it wasn't, and that was part of my responsibilities once that was announced. That I was, because I had worked College of Ed outreach programs before, when I was familiar with most of them, so I was helping audit and determine which programs were going forward and how we were gonna. That was fun. But it was not smooth because everybody was suspicious of everybody, and I was like no, they're nice people. I was the peacekeeper. I think it's fine now, but that was hairy times there. And nobody wanted to move. Everybody had their rights. Nobody wanted to adjust to any new rules and human sciences, I think, it's a different culture than College of Ed was. Like maybe more rules, maybe.
which one was bigger though?
College of Education.
I was thinking it would be.
But of course they've taken a huge hit. Nobody wants to be a teacher now, so that's so sad.
Hopefully that'll switch back around sooner rather than later.
I hope so too.
If all these numbers are dropping too, do you think there'll come a time when they will just have to close its doors?
I don't know. They have a lot more staff than when I had it now, but they should be making good interest off the grants. Hopefully they can pick it close to where they were, pick it back up to where they were before, but
I noticed in the latest, or maybe it's the one before, a program for the upcoming one, they were having people that were like in New York City would be teaching.
Oh yeah, online. Yes.
Course. So that throws in some more variety.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
For those who want to sit beside the computer and learn that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the social aspect though that you don't quite get that way.
Yeah. And it's it's a learning curve for people to learn to log on and
yes. The price value though is it's cheap.
Yes.
So, that's not prohibitive what that costs. So what's funding it now is the College of Ed plus the university plus what you've got in the principal.
So initially, the president's office, I think, pledged $25,000 a year for 5 years, and the College of Education pledged $25,000 a year to perpetuity. However, I think they're not contributing now because they're not the College of Education. They're College of Education and Human Sciences. And when I left, what they were saying was this program has enough in-kind support and they should be able to stand on their own 2 feet. So like the catalog, marketing does that for them now. So, and they have tech support now, and they said nicer space, which is true. It is nicer than Scott, but different. And So they're I think counting their in-kind gifts. And
Well, financial's not the issue. Then it's just getting people to come, huh?
yes.
Or get back into the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So they need some rock star to come.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, or several anyway. Need to get the Perkins back in there, huh?
Yeah.
Oh well, you have had a really good run, and you said the average age was 73-ish.
Yes. Yeah.
Mostly gender wise, more. I'm thinking.
I would say more women, but it was close. It was close. There were
more singles or couples.
more couples, but if we had a single male, they weren't single long. Doesn't that crack you up? Oh, there were a lot of couples, but a lot of times couples didn't take the same classes,
Okay.
so they came together and split up.
Yeah, that's the way it would be at our house.
Yeah, same here. And a lot of, I mean, they have a lot of the original members still go, like Ed Arquette, still on the executive committee.
Okay. Yeah, so that's been almost 20 years. Do my math. 2000. Oh, it's coming up on 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up on 20 years. Yeah, time has flown in some ways and slowed and gone slow in others, hasn't it? To make sure I've covered what I had. Is there anything that we haven't covered you think we need to?
I don't think so.
How did you guys determine success as you went along? Did you did evaluations of classes?
Yes.
But for the program overall, I guess just attendance then?
For OSHR, let me think. They asked about, number one question was membership. They asked about fundraising. That was the worst part of my job. I don't like asking for money. I don't. But I did get gifts, and they asked how many locations. For a while, it was really important, the diversity aspect. And then I think collectively our group decided that people who were comfortable and enjoyed school as youngsters enjoyed OLLI. And so if they didn't have a welcoming experience in school as a youngster, they were not likely to join OLLI. So there wasn't a great deal of diversity in OLLI, any of them, except maybe San Francisco. They asked about that. They asked about, you had to mail catalogs. They wanted to see a wide assortment of classes. And then you had, I can't remember what they called it, like your OLLI something moment, like the best thing you did that year. At every conference, they had a slide of that. So.
What were some of yours?
Oh my God. Like the circus travel trip.
I think then the Tulsa Race Riot one.
Yes, the Tulsa Race Riot one. That was huge. Some of the Indian history travel trips.
Okay.
So, I mean, it was a list of all your courses, the numbers enrolled, where the programs were held. And, some people tried to skirt the attendance issue by having them at retirement centers. And then the retirement center would make a donation and allow 200 members. So it wasn't really fair. So that you had to make sure you were recruiting your own members and if you had scholarships, they were paid for privately or that kind of thing. A lot of financials.
Would they do surprise checks? No, you probably don't.
No, they didn't do that, but they would communicate with the dean and the president's office. And then as far as my job went, what I always did when I got performance evaluations, I just sent my executive board members and my board of directors names, email, phone number. Call anyone you want and ask them anything you want. So that's how I did it. And then Osher would ask, the dean, who was my supervisor, how she judged me on my performance.
Did they have? Did Osher as a whole recognize outstanding programs through the years?
And at those conferences, you would get help, you would feel supportive, but also you felt like the biggest loser because like Furman University, I don't even remember where that was. They came in one year and they said, oh, we got X number of donations and we're building our own building. And we were all like, God, we hate you. We're renting churches. No, there was a lot of disparity in, it was some of the private universities had really big dollars coming in. And we're scrapping by in a 1953 dorm room. So, but it was just a mix going to those conferences.
Did you interact much with your OU counterpart?
I didn't see them that much. Like I would see them coming in and then no. Now we interacted on that one Bedlam learning series, but
not.
But we always had higher numbers. From our initial grant, we always had higher numbers. So I was kind of proud of that.
Beat one of the Bedlam things.
Yeah, I know.
Not that that's not a way to gauge things either. So, all right. Looks like I have covered everything that I wanted to cover. And you said anything else? So my last question would be, how do you want people to remember RuthAnn?
Oh, gosh. I hope they know. I hope they know how much a program meant to me, that the members meant to me, that it was worth all the hard work. I learned as much building the program from them as hopefully they did in classes. It was, I hope they know I worked hard for them.
I'd say they do. And I'm sure they miss your laugh during all of this too. One more question. Do you know how many miles you put on your car during that time? Or at least on average for a year?
Oh my gosh, I put so many miles on. So what I would do is whatever I got in mileage, I would just put that in my savings. I would not touch it. And then I would pay my car off early. And it did crack me up because when I was trying to review our numbers and everything in preparation for this interview, I looked at this old article that said, she packs up her Honda Fit, right? Okay, who's driving my Honda Fit now? My son. And it is... I bought that car because the seats fold down flat and you could get more stuff in it. And I bought it in Bartlesville after classes. I was like, I've got to get a new car. And then I'm like, why did I buy a car in Bartlesville? Now I have to drive home, have my husband drive me back up there. I put a lot of miles on, and there were many, many, many mornings where I'd get up at 5 and hit the road to go to Tulsa or Bartlesville or Oklahoma City, or wake up in the morning and go, my God, what city am I in today?
Yeah.
It was harried. It was a fast-paced life.
We work from daylight to dark.
Yes.
Some days, most days. Well, I guess a good chunk of days.
Mm-hmm. And I checked my email all the time. So when I retired, I was like, you have got to stop checking email. You got to quit answering the phone. It was a huge.
You had to detox.
Yes, that's exactly it. It was a huge change. So now when you emailed me and I didn't reply for 2 days, it's because I don't even look at my email.
That's encouraging.
And emergencies, there's not that many. And
too bad we lost Mary.
we lost Mary. My goodness. If I hadn't been in OLLI, I wouldn't know Mary.
Yeah, I think she came to the class that we taught, Mary Fry and Mary Alice. There were 2 Marys, so we had to keep them.
Mary Alice Foster. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What a phenomenal lady. What?
Both of them.
Yes.
Yeah. And you. So, big, yeah. It could not. I don't think it would be the success it is today without all the effort you put in, and your personality was just the right one for it too.
Well, thank you.
So Ed picked wisely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ed's a wise guy. He's very smart, and he helped me in subtle ways understand what people go through as they're aging. You know, that was a steep learning curve for me. So.
And your parents participated some, it sounds like.
Yes.
So that's a good bonus too.
And my dad was a very active community member in Tulsa. He was a founding board member and Neighbor for Neighbor in the food bank in Tulsa. And so having my dad enthusiastic and helping me in Tulsa, he would scout out locations for me. He really enjoyed the program, but I also really enjoyed having him help me. He was a funny guy, but he was very helpful.
Funny guy, and that's where you got yours, I guess.
He did have a great sense of humor. He was a great guy and just a great asset, because he would talk it up, and then we'd have a lot more people show up and try it out, and it was a lot of fun. I got a lot of help from him.
And your motivation each day to get up and go do it again came from another fig for the day, or what? A picnic for the day?
I think that's just in my family. I think we were all raised to be hard workers. Be a hard worker, give it your best, and be proud of what you do. And same thing I tell my kids, that you don't have to make the most money, but you spend most of your life at work. Do something you love and you're passionate about. And so, and I think they all do, but that's how I was raised. Work hard and build your own career.
You set a good example for them.
I hope I have.
They could see that you liked it, or I'm assuming they could see that you liked it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, then. Well, we'll wrap up, and thank you for spending the afternoon with me. It's been great.
Thank you.